Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lewis and here we talk about anything to do with investing, growing your money, improving your personal finance. And in today's video, we're going to dive into the budget that was announced this week by the Labour government. We're just going to dissect a few of the different policies and new things that were announced, and most importantly, how they're going to affect you and I, because there's lots and lots of stuff in there, but there are a few specific things that we're going to touch upon in this video that are going to have a big difference to you and are going to make a big impact on some of the things we already talk about on this channel, and I'm sure you see other content creators talking about as well. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail. We're going to break down just some of the very and probably most important policies, so we can just examine what changes there are, so why they're different to what the policies have been in the past, or if they're new policies, and then how they're going to affect your money, because let's be honest, that's the most important thing, how these policies impact the amount of money you have to be able to keep building towards that journey that you're looking to achieve with your finances. As I said, there's a handful of policies that we're going to pick out today, but before we dive into what those are and what I think the most important policies are that's come out of the budget this week, just a quick overview on what the budget is, because I appreciate that not everybody may know exactly what the budget is or what it means. So the budget comes around once a year, always rough at this time of year. It's always normally in the autumn, sometime in either late September, October, or late November. The budget has to be announced by the end of November, so that's why this budget in particular has drawn quite a lot of interest, because it's been announced very late by the Chancellor Reeves this week. So we're obviously coming towards the end of November, and we would end of November when you're watching this video. So it's come very, very late in the year, and that's because there's been so many different components and speculation and things going on, and a challenging year for the UK economy, which has led to this budget coming later than normal. But the budget in essence is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Prime Minister. They need to be able to have money to be able to spend on public services, public finances, all the things that you and I like to consume day to day, or need to consume day to day, whether that be funding state pension, national health service, any form of public transport that you use, and so many other things, funding local councils, all of these things. There are so much money that goes into having to fund the state that we use on a daily basis, and that money needs to come from somewhere, right? So that money tends to come from taxes, whether it be us being taxed, businesses being taxed, various different corners of the world that money can be clawed from. The budget sets out the new or changes in policies that the government are planning to make in the future that will allow them to raise more tax. Why do they need to raise more tax? Because let's be honest, sitting here, no one likes the concept of having to pay more tax. But as I said at the start, those taxes pay for those essential welfare state things that we require on a daily basis, and how our country has been set up to function. We need to be able to fund those things. So that's why money is taken from us, from our paychecks, from businesses, to be able to fund those things. The budget brings in policies or changes in policies that are going to be made in the future, whether that be now or whether that be at some time in the future, to help raise more money. More money is needed to be raised because costs are constantly increasing. Things have become more expensive to fund. So as you see everything else in your life increasing in price, so does the cost of funding the state. So the government needs to find more money to be able to fund those things. So that's where some of the policies come in, and why there might be changes, because more money is needed to be raised. I should point out as well that not all policies in the budget and things come out in the budget are looking to increase revenues. Some things are new policies that actually mean that there's going to be an increase in expenditure on things as well. So more money is going to be spent on something to help try and improve it, or help try and put it in a better position. So it's not all about gaining money from us. There are things that come out in the budget that also show where the government will be spending its money in the future. Important I put that bit in there, but let's be honest, the things that we focus on the most are the things that are going to cost us more money. And that's really what we're going to cover today, is some of the changes in tax policies and various other different policies that are going to effectively have an impact on your finances in the future. So the first one we're going to cover is income tax thresholds. Now, there was a lot of speculation coming into the budget this year that there was going to be an increase in income tax on you, on I, on lots of everybody out there effectively was facing the prospect of having to pay more in income tax. So Paying more in income tax, aka the money that comes that you see on your payslip every month that comes out of your paycheck before it reaches your bank account, that money goes off to the government to help fund some of those things I mentioned at the start of the video. So there was a lot of speculation suggesting that that amount that gets taken from our paychecks was going to get increased by a small amount for us as an individual, but when you add everybody's together, obviously that makes quite a substantial amount of money. However, that tax changed in the last couple of days before the budget, and that tax policy was effectively ruled out. However, there was a policy brought in, or almost not brought in, just kept the same, that actually has an impact on, again, how much money we pay in tax, and that was the freeze on income tax thresholds. So, freeze on income tax thresholds. In the tax system at the moment, there are various different points where you pay more money depending on how much you earn. So as you go up the income ladder and as you climb the ladder, you pay different tax brackets. Those tax brackets were at the moment were frozen until 2028, and there has now been an extension put on those tax brackets, frozen where they are in the tax system, frozen on the amounts that they are. Straight away, you think, how does that impact how much tax that I pay? Well, every year, I'm sure your company does it. I know my company does it, and lots of other people will have that should have this as well. Is every year at the start of the year, your salary increases somewhat in line with inflation. It might not always be the amount of inflation, but it increases a nominal amount that somewhere near matches inflation. That's to try and maintain your standard of living. So as inflation has an impact on prices, so prices go up, so does your salary, so that you can maintain the same standard of living. Now, this is where you can start to see why a freeze in tax brackets might actually not be as good a thing as it perhaps sounds initially. By freezing the tax brackets, as your salary increases with inflation, you creep closer and closer and possibly cross over one of those tax brackets. So if you cross over one of those tax brackets, what that actually means is that you will be paying more money in tax because your salary is increasing with inflation, but the tax bracket is not increasing with inflation. If the tax bracket was increasing with inflation, you would be moving at the same rate, so you wouldn't end up paying any more income tax. However, by the government freezing this policy, they expect to raise a significant amount more income as people's salaries catch up with the kind of real world that we've experienced over the last few years where inflation has been significant. As their salaries catch up, there will be lots of salaries that will cross over those income tax thresholds into the next bracket up, which means that you could end up paying more money. So, something worth taking away and having a look at your salary and where it is at the moment and where it sits in and amongst all of the different tax brackets in the UK. You can find them very easily by Googling just what the income tax thresholds are. Type it into Google, it will give you the breakdown of all of the different tax thresholds there are in the UK and the percentage of tax you pay at those when you're in those different thresholds. So have a look at your salary, have a think about whether it might be increasing in the future because you're going to get a pay rise, or how much you think it might increase in the new year in line with inflation. And is that going to tip you over into one of those new income tax thresholds? Because if it does, that's an example of how that tax policy brought in by the government can help raise them more money. The next one we're going to touch upon, and this is just a really brief one, is that there was also a change in dividend tax that was also announced. So a 2% increase in tax on dividends earned from 2026 going forwards. So what this means is, and there's a couple of ways of breaking this down, is, but in effect, dividends that you earn from companies. So if you're invested in the stock market at the moment, you're invested in specific companies, there's a reasonable chance that those companies pay out dividends based on company performance. That dividend is effectively you earning a small portion of the company's overall profit being given back to you as a shareholder. Going forwards, there will be a slight increase on tax that you have to pay on those dividends that you earn that are paid to you. Now, there's a bit of a caveat here. If you invest at the moment only through a stocks and shares ISA in the UK, those dividends earnings that you will be getting back into your stocks and shares ISA are actually shielded from tax. So if at the moment your investments are only through that channel, you're actually okay and this percentage increase doesn't have too much of an impact on you. However, if you max out your ISA every year and you max out the earnings you can make in your ISA every year, then and you go on to have a separate investment account, a general stocks and shares investment account you have currently, this is who this tax policy is going to affect. That increase means that you're going to have to declare more tax on when you fill in your self-assessment at the end of every financial year. You're going to have to increase, you're going to see an increase likely in how much tax you're paying. So a small one that affects investing, but only affects investing if you're investing in a certain way. So just again, something to go away and just do a little bit more reading on if that affects you and you do invest outside of a stocks and shares ISA or outside of your pension. The third one is another big one, and one that was heavily speculated in the lead up to the budget, and no surprises that it has come true, and that's a cut in the tax-free allowance for cash ISAs, which is a huge change. And I think probably if you went back a few months ago, not a change that anybody saw coming, but rumours started to circulate in sort of the later end of the summer, early autumn, that this could be a possible change that was going to come into effect. And sure enough, it has. So the cash ISA limit going forwards has been cut to £12,000 that you can put into a cash ISA completely tax-free. So you can earn interest on those savings, you can put it into a cash ISA, and that's how much you can put in there every single year that is tax-free. The current limit is £20,000. So that is quite a notable change, quite a significant percentage increase, or decrease, I should say, of the amount of cash you can put into an ISA without having to pay any form of tax. This obviously makes a particular difference to those of you out there that are heavy savers and saving is your focus at the moment or your preference, because that can make a real big difference to the amount of money that you can put into those accounts tax-free. The important sort of side note, I guess, here is that this limit doesn't affect stocks and shares ISAs. So slightly different obviously in regards to what they do. Cash is a cash saving. Your money sits as a pool of cash in that stocks and shares account. With the investment account, the stocks and shares ISA, your money is invested into different companies. However you've kind of got it set up, that's where your money is invested. That limit will remain at £20,000. So why has this policy been brought into play? The reason it's been brought into play is to try and stimulate some investment and some growth in the UK economy. There is a suggestion from the government at the moment that investment is low, investment is sluggish, there's a lot of money sat in cash savings. So this policy has been brought in to try and get people to move that money out of cash savings and into investment accounts, into stocks and shares accounts, stocks and shares ISAs, to try and stimulate the economy and get it moving and help then grow the economy. And so money goes round. We grow the economy. In principle, you and I have more money to spend. We spend more money. The economy grows some more, and round it goes. So this is a policy really aimed at jump-starting the economy and getting things moving. Do I think it will work? I'll kind of come on at the end of the video to kind of a summary of what I think of these policies, but in short, no, I don't think it will really work. In principle, my take on this anyway is that any money you've got outside of an emergency fund, and you'll have seen this on some of my other videos, any money you've got outside of an emergency fund should be being invested anyway. Once you've got that emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses set up, having any other money sat in cash is effectively, it's sat there being eroded by inflation. Whereas if you get it into the stock market, you are able to try and earn more money than outpace inflation so that your money grows. I should caveat, very small bit there, that if you do choose to invest and that's a choice you make, then your money is at risk and it's completely at your own choice. This is not investment advice or financial advice. This is just my opinion and what I do with my money. So yeah, if you put it into that stocks and shares ISA, then you're able to help try and grow your money. So the policy is there to try and help shift, I guess, that momentum. But yeah, a bit dubious on whether I think it will actually have that impact. Now, this next one was a real surprise. It caught me off guard, and obviously I like to spend a lot of time looking at this, so I didn't see this one coming. But there was a policy announced that in the future there will be a cap on the amount of money that you can invest through your auto enrollment pension, or money you can put into your auto enrollment pension. There will be a cap on how much of that money goes in will be free from having to pay national insurance. So that cap is going to come in at £2,000 annually. So what that means on paper is that you will only be able to put £2,000 into your pension that will escape paying national insurance payments. After that, you will have to pay national insurance on any money that goes into your pension. £2,000 a year into a pension is not a massive amount of money, and I appreciate whoever you are watching this video, you might be in various different financial situations, and this will affect some people, but it won't affect everybody. But in principle, if you're saving for and looking to invest into your pension for a long-term and healthy retirement, £2,000 invested into your pension is not a significant amount of money. So this is going to affect quite a lot of people, and was a real surprise, because putting money into pensions, most people have the money that's in their pensions is invested in the stock market. So sort of negates the policy we spoke about before, because this is harming people that are then investing into the stock market, which is really what the government wants to try and drive growth. This is going to almost stunt and prevent people from putting money into their pensions. So this policy is going to have quite a big impact when it takes effect. And I think 2028 was when this policy is touted to come in. It's going to have a really big impact on how people think about their pensions. And my personal take on this is that we should be encouraging as many people as possible from an early age to be investing into their pension. The earlier you start, the smaller increments of money you have to put in, and the bigger pot you end up with at the end of the day. This is almost a bit of a disincentive to do that, and also particularly catches out anybody that is in maybe your 40s or in your 50s, and you're looking to really power your pension forwards. Maybe you started later, or you've got new goals that you want to get to, so you're putting more and more of your money into a pension. This really affects those people, because the likelihood is they're going to be putting more than £2,000 a year into their auto enrollment pension through their company. So this policy is going to have a big impact on just how people think about their pensions and how and where people put their money. The great advantage of auto enrollment, when it was set up and what it was brought in for, is to shield money going into pension pots from tax, from income tax, from national insurance payments, to try and incentivize people to put money into their pensions. So bringing in this policy does feel like a little bit of a stab in the back to people that have kind of committed to their pensions, and particularly for those people that are looking to make the most out of their pensions before they retire. So this is something to factor in if you're planning to retire in the next 10 years, even 15 years. I would certainly take a look at how this policy impacts you from when it comes in 2028, and how you're putting your money into your pension. Certainly have a look and just weigh up the considerations and how much it's going to cost you. There are free calculators online already out there that you can go and plug your numbers into that you're looking to achieve for your final pension number, and you can see how much this new policy is going to have an effect on you and the numbers you have. So I definitely encourage you to go and do that. But yeah, real surprise policy before for this budget and coming out in this budget, because yeah, pensions have always been something that the government and myself and content creators have always been really keen to push people to get started and invest in. There are a few other policies brought in as well that we're not going to cover on this video here today, but if they sound like they might affect you, definitely go away and have a look at them. Specifically, the mansion tax that was brought in, a new payment that has to be made on houses that are valued, monthly payment, I should say, on houses that are valued over £2 million. So if that's something you're watching this video and that's something that you think affects you, definitely go away and do a bit of research on that. Also, the changes to minimum wage payments as well, which is obviously great for anyone that is working in a job that pays minimum wage, because you're going to see an increase in your pay, which will hopefully help alleviate any financial pressures you may be feeling, because the minimum wage increases have lagged behind inflation recently. So hopefully positive result for anyone that's earning those minimum wage salaries that wants to help kick their income forward. So a great outcome there. Again, if that sounds like you, do go away and have a little bit more of a read on that policy. And then also the changes to child benefits as well. That's another one that, again, if it sounds like something that affects you, you've got young children at the moment, you've got one child, you've got two children, particularly it will have an impact on you. So go away and have a look at that policy as well. But there's lots and lots of stuff in the budget that is worth looking. If you have a spare bit of time, I definitely encourage you to go through and read through it, because it has a financial impact on you, your life, the country that you live in going forwards. And this will certainly be a budget that whether you think positive or negative will probably have its place in history, because those pressures have been there so much on the government to be able to raise more income to pay for the cost of borrowing that the government is experiencing at the moment. My thoughts on these policies that we've been through, it's a bit of I think some of them are a little bit wishy-washy, to be honest. I mentioned it at the start with the income tax thresholds and frozen, and some of the dates and changes of some of these policies. They're all geared, quite a lot of them, the pension one as well, geared towards the latter end of this government's kind of tenure and time in power. And I think a lot of them have been put in place for them to be able to retract in the future. They help now by putting them in place because it helps the markets, it particularly helps the bond market, see how the government are going to raise more funds in the future, which makes them feel more comfortable about debt repayments, etc. So then it helps interest rates, frees up more money for the government. There's a whole separate kind of world that goes on there. And I think that's why some of these policies have been announced. But if we're sat here in three years' time, do I think all of these policies have actually come into effect and are live in the market? Not convinced, particularly around salary sacrifice. I think that's going to see a lot of resistance going forwards. I'm not sure about the income tax thresholds freeze. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure around that when it comes around to the next general election. When that comes up, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure there, and you could see that policy revoked before it's even implemented. So, yeah, I think it's a budget which people expected in a word format, but in terms of actual policy changes overnight, probably not going to see a massive impact. But I would encourage you to stay in tune with this stuff, really, and just keep an eye on what's going on out there. If there's any changes, there'll be another budget next year as well, and any impact that comes from that, there's always a spring kind of statement, a mini spring budget with any changes. So definitely, if you want to grow your financial future and you want to be in a good financial position, then definitely plugging into things like this is going to be really important for you, because you just stay across what's happening and what impact these policies could have on your money. So yeah, definitely stay close to that stuff in the future. But there we have it. That's my breakdown on the budget that was announced this week by Rachel Reeves. Some of those key policies in there that I think are going to be really important, and how they're going to impact you. But hopefully you found that useful, found some of those policies digestible. It can be a long and laborious process when they're being announced, and they're in long news articles that get published on the day, and there's so much hype and hysteria around budgets being announced. But hopefully that just draws out some of the key policies that are most likely to affect you and how they will affect you. I'm going to do lots more videos like this in the future when future budgets get announced. So hopefully you liked this content. If you did, then make sure you subscribe to the channel for future content like it. Make sure you like this video as well, because it helps me know whether this type of content is useful. If you've got any questions about the budget or your own thoughts, drop them down in the comments as well. I'd love to hear how you've interpreted it and how you think it's going to impact you. But yeah, other than that, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.